Today's lesson is More Than Mail, How Postal Systems Have Adapted Over Time. Hi, everybody. I am Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And in today's program, we're going to talk about the history of postal systems all over the world. Postal systems, of course, are post offices, basically. They send mail around a country or to other countries, and they receive the mail from other countries or from other people, and then they send it on to other people. I worked in kind of a postal system at my university. In college, it was campus mail, but it's kind of the same thing, although it was much smaller scale.
And postal systems, it's one of those things that's been around a long time. They're very, very important. But yeah, we don't really have a Thomas Edison or a Henry Ford of the postal system, one person we can point to. I always thought it was the Victorians who invented the postal system, because I remember as a kid collecting stamps, and I got a penny red stamp, which was one of the early Victorian stamps that people would buy and stick to envelopes to send letters in the mail. The penny black, that was the one everyone looked for. Very valuable, very expensive. But then also, didn't they have the Pony Express system in the Wild West of America?
I guess so.
That was kind of a postal system too, wasn't it?
I think it was kind of short-lived. It didn't last very long. But that is an example of sending letters or packages, and that's a postal system. That's what a postal system does. So that's what we're going to talk about today, how these systems adapted over time, how they changed due to circumstances with the advancements in technology and things like that. So let's get to it. Let's listen to the first part and introduce this topic to you.
More than mail, how postal systems have adapted over time. Imagine this. It's 2000 BC. You're the ruler of Egypt, and you need to send a message to a distant governor. What do? Easy. You invent the world's first mail system. Secure boxes carried by boat along the Nile. Thousands of years later, the methods we use to communicate have changed dramatically, but our need to connect remains.
大家好，标题中介绍形容词 postal 指邮政的，例如 There was a delay due to a problem in the postal system. 因为邮政系统出现问题而导致延误，或者 The country's postal network reaches even the most remote villages. 该国的邮政网络甚至能到达最偏远的村庄。下一个看到名词 governor， 意思是地方长官、省长或是州长。例如 The governor gave a speech about the new laws. 州长发表了关于新法律的谈话。
All right, we are into our article, so we're going to begin with a scenario just to kind of get our minds thinking about postal systems. And gosh, from that date that I see there in our first sentence, we're going way back beyond the Victorian era or even the Wild West of America. It says, imagine this. So picture this in your mind. You can close your eyes and listen to what I'm saying as you draw this picture in your mind, as you imagine this. So it's 2000 BC. That is an extremely long time ago. It's 2000 BC. You're the ruler of Egypt, so a pharaoh, with pyramids and all sorts of things around you a very long time ago. You're the ruler of Egypt. You're the king, you're the queen, you're the pharaoh, whatever, and you need to send a message to a distant governor. Okay, well, yeah, sure. These days, of course, we'd send an email or maybe pick up the phone, but of course, communication, sending information back and forth in order to do business or to run a country as a pharaoh, as a ruler does, you need to communicate. You need to send messages to people far away. Distant, meaning far away. And a governor, this would be a lower level government official, not the president, not the king. In America, they have governors of states. So each state has a sort of leader. We don't say the president of California. We say the governor of California. But in many ways, they have similar powers in a smaller area. So this would be a lower level, but still quite important government official.
What are they called in Canada?
They're called premiers in Canada.
Okay.
Absolutely. We have a governor general, and he or she does the business of the king or queen of England, who, of course, is nominally the leader of Canada. But yes, the governor is quite an important official, but below sort of the national level on a more state or region or something like regional level, something like that. So you need to communicate with this important government official on important government business. What do? Easy, it says. Okay, so how do you communicate? Well, it's easy. You invent the world's first mail system. And what was that, or how was that put in play in the ancient Egyptian times? Well, it was secure boxes carried by boat along the Nile. Not too different from how we send mail around today. If something is secure, it's very safe. In this case, it would probably have a lock on it. So if someone steals this box, they won't be able to open it easily and take the gold or the important messages out. And a box, of course, is just a container, often quite strong, and it's made for carrying documents and lots of other things. So this is basically just a safe way of carrying information. And of course, in Egypt, the Nile River was the main form of transportation and communication.
Exactly, the Nile River. And thousands of years later, the methods we use to communicate have changed dramatically, but our need to connect remains. Okay, so we're going back to an early example of sending mail of an early postal system. But nowadays, of course, we still have the need to send letters and packages to each other. The ways we do this have changed, of course. We don't send things up boats anymore. Well, I guess sometimes we might, but most of the time, mail goes by plane or by car or truck or whatever. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part and learn some more.
In ancient times, civilizations like Persia, Rome, and China developed postal systems to deliver royal or government orders. Each was remarkable for its time, but the 13th century Mongol Yam system took communication to another level. Spanning much of Eurasia, this vast web relied on relay stations where messengers could rest, eat, and trade tired horses for fresh ones. Riders sometimes covered up to 320 kilometers per day, which made long-distance messaging faster and more reliable than ever before.
第二部分看到名词 communication 表示通讯、讯息、信件，也可以是交流或是沟通的意思。例如 I recently received several communications from the bank about my account. 我最近收到了好几封关于我账户问题的银行来函。或是 Effective communication promotes strong relationships between individuals. 有效的沟通能促进人与人之间稳固的关系。另外补充这个字的动词 communicate. C-O-M-M-U-N-I-C-A-T-E communicate. 例如 Young people mostly communicate with each other on apps. 年轻人大多用行动应用程式来彼此沟通。再举个例子 You should communicate with your friends so that they know how you feel. 你应该跟朋友们沟通一下，让他们知道你的感受。再来看到动词 span， 它的意思是横跨或是跨越。例如 The bridge spans the river that divides the city. 这座桥横跨那条将城市分隔两岸的河。
Okay, so here in the second part, we're talking about postal systems in ancient history. We just talked about Egypt. But in ancient times, thousands of years ago, civilizations like Persia, Rome, and China developed postal systems to deliver royal or government orders. Okay, so these are some examples of ancient civilizations like Persia, which of course is modern-day Iran. We've got Rome, of course. We've got the city of Rome still, but the Roman Empire is long gone. And China is still here. The ancient Chinese or the Romans or the Persians would send mail in various ways, and they would deliver royal or government orders. Royal just means having to do with the royal family, the king, the queen, maybe even the emperor or the empress or whatever. And of course, these would also be government orders. They're not for people to send letters and mail just yet. They are for the government mostly.
There you go. And each was remarkable for its time, it says. So each one of those, Persian, Roman system, the ancient Chinese, was remarkable, was noticeable, notable and different and a little bit unique for its time. The Romans, of course, relied on a very strong network of roads that they had built around their empire. The Persians and Chinese probably had their own technological developments. But let's focus on one specific one. It says, but the 13th century Mongol Yam or Yam system took communication to another level. Okay. So yeah, the way people communicated and transported messages and other things around in ancient times was very interesting, and each place had their own unique characteristics. But the 13th century and the 1200s in Mongolia, the Mongolian system, this took communication to another level. When you take something to another level, you kind of improve it noticeably. It's a big jump in technology. So we had cell phones with old Nokia and Motorola phones, but the iPhone took the cell phone to another level. Now we could watch movies and surf the internet. It was a big jump in technology. And communication, well, that's what we're talking about. When we talk, we're communicating. When we pick up a phone and make a call, send a message, or send an email, or write a letter in the old-fashioned system, this is all communication, talking to people, exchanging information in another way. So they took the exchange of information, or a postal system, to another level. It was much more different and kind of maybe more modern and more efficient than other countries had been doing it. So what did the Mongols do?
Well, they rode horses, as you know, and
I
think they still ride horses, so their network was quite big, spanning much of Eurasia. This vast web relied on relay stations where messengers could rest, eat, and trade tired horses for fresh ones. So again, they had a vast network. As you know, the Mongol Empire was quite huge. And the Mongols, of course, were covering quite large areas of land here. So, of course, this particular area spanned much of Eurasia. To span just means to cover. And, of course, this spans much of Eurasia. Eurasia, of course, is the continent of Asia and Europe put together. And just for the record, I never bought the idea that Europe is a separate continent from Asia because it's still connected by land there. To me, Eurasia is one continent.
Yeah, a lot of people would say Europe goes from sort of Western France or England all the way to the first quarter of Russia, the Ural Mountains, I think. That's often where people make the distinction between what is Europe to the west and Asia to the east. But yes, a lot of people would say Eurasia. So this massive area of land, of course, in the northern hemisphere. And this is a vast or a huge web, and it relied on, it depended on, it needed, it was built on, you could probably also say, relay stations where messengers, these are the people riding the horses, carrying the letters and other things, these messengers, they could rest, eat, and trade tired horses for fresh ones. So in the same way that if you're driving a long distance on a highway, you might stop every 100 kilometers or so to gas up your car or get a drink or go to the bathroom, take a little rest. They had similar situations there. But imagine if you would drive your car down to Hsinchu and then trade your car for another one and take that one down to Tainan and then trade that car for another. That's kind of what they were doing, but the cars, of course, were horses. So this is a relay station. When you pass one thing on to another person, like in a race where they pass that stick, that baton, and the next person runs really fast for a distance and then they pass it on, that's a relay race. So these relay stations is where these riders, these messengers, they would rest, they would snack or a meal, and they would get a new horse. They would trade tired horses for fresh ones. So I guess if you really loved your horse Marigold, you wouldn't really be able to ride that horse all the way because, of course, the horse would collapse from exhaustion after being ridden all day. But with different horses under you every hour or two, you could keep on going at top speed. And they did go at top speed. It says riders sometimes covered or crossed up to 320 kilometers per day. That's astonishing by horse, which made long-distance messaging faster and more reliable than ever before. We mentioned the Pony Express system they had in the Wild West of America, like in the 19th century. It was pretty much the same as this Mongolian system.
Right, and here the word cover just means to complete a distance or to go over a distance. So they would cover up to 320 kilometers per day. That's how much they would ride. That is the area they covered. You could also say maybe TV stations like KEYC TV, Channel 12 in Mankato, covers southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. That's a TV station I used to watch when I was a kid. But in any case here, the riders would cover that distance per day, which is a long distance, and that made long-distance messaging faster and more reliable than ever before. So it was a great improvement there. Okay, now let's move on now to the final part of our lesson. We'll listen first.
Though originally designed for government officials, postal systems eventually became public services. England opened its Royal Mail to the public in 1635. In 1840, the arrival of the flat-rate penny post system made sending letters widely affordable. By the 20th century, Innovations like postal savings banks had fully cemented the role of postal systems in daily life.
第3部分介绍形容词 affordable， 指负担得起的，价格合理的。例如 The restaurant prides itself on offering delicious meals at affordable prices. 这家餐厅以提供平价的美味餐点而自豪。或是 The budget airline offers affordable travel options to popular destinations. 这家廉价航空公司提供前往热门目的地实惠的旅行选择。下一个介绍名词 innovation， 表示新事物、新发明或方法。我们可以说Dr. Weaver has introduced several innovations that have improved patient care. Weaver 医师引进了几项新技术，改善了病患的照护品质。又或者说 The smartphone was an innovation that changed how we communicate. 智慧型手机是一项改变我们沟通方式的创新。后面看到 cement 这个单字，它是动词，意思是巩固或是加强。例如The partnership aims to cement strong ties between the two organizations. 该合伙关系旨在巩固那两个组织间紧密的关系。最后一个例子 The treaty helped to cement diplomatic relations between the two nations. 该条约有助巩固两国间的外交关系。
All right, we are back. So let's move into a slightly more modern era with postal systems. It says, though originally designed for government officials, postal systems eventually became public services. Well, that's interesting. So back in the old days, if you wanted to send a card to your grandmother on her birthday, you might have to take it yourself because postal systems were for official government use or for government officials, for the king or the pharaoh of Egypt to send a message to a governor, not for you to send birthday greetings to your grandmother or vice versa. It says, but eventually, after some time, postal systems eventually, and we use eventually to talk about time passing and things changing. It could be a matter of a few minutes. I got to the doctor's office and I had to wait, and eventually I got to see the doctor. Maybe I waited 20 minutes. Or it could be as a young person, you'll grow up and eventually you'll be able to move off on your own and have your own life as an adult or something like that. So time passed. So eventually these postal systems became public services, not private, not something set up by people to use only if they've paid for it, and also not sort of government services or official services that are only open or accessible to important government people, government workers. No, public services mean open to everyone. Our libraries are public services, our hospitals, our police, our forces, our firefighting forces. These are all public services. If you pay your taxes and live in the country, you have access to them. So it basically became open to everyone in the country. And yes, now we go to England, but still much earlier than I remember learning. England opened its Royal Mail to the public in 1635. If you'd said 1835, I would have been a little bit more like, yeah, that sounds about right. But 1635, that is a very long time ago. That's even before the English Civil War. So yeah, a very long time ago, but that was the first time that people could actually send messages to each other without having an important government job.
Royal, again, refers to the fact that England is ruled by a king or a queen or whatever, so everything's royal, the royal police or whatever, the Royal Mail. And in 1840, the arrival of the flat-rate penny post system made sending letters widely affordable to your average Joe.
Something that most people could do. You could now send a card to your grandma on her birthday thanks to this penny post system. And then into the modern era by the 20th century, so of course the 1900s, innovations like postal savings banks had fully cemented the role of postal systems in daily life. So in other words, in the modern era, innovations, new inventions, new developments, new services that the postal services offered to the public, things like postal savings banks, so you could actually use the post office to send letters, and also as a bank to keep your money safe and whatnot. So they had fully cemented. If you cement something, of course, cement is that sort of artificial rock that we can create buildings out of, right? A lot of buildings in Taiwan are made of cement. But when we use this in this way, we're sort of saying it makes something permanent. It makes something kind of solid, in this case, in society, in the government, and then the services that the people have available to them. It's not a temporary thing. It's not something we're just trying out. No, it becomes a permanent thing, like having the government help pay our medical bills is a policy that is cemented in Taiwan society. If any government came in and said, we're getting rid of that, we're going to have a private system like America where you have to pay your doctors, people would be upset because this is now an established or permanent part of our social system. It's been cemented in our social system like post offices have.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Here comes Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分谈到13世纪的蒙古驿站系统，有一句提到 Riders sometimes covered up to 320 kilometers per day. 骑士有时每天能行进多达320公里。文中的 cover 是当动词，它是表达行走走完，像是行走某段距离。那么 up to 则表达多达什么什么，高达什么什么，后面通常会接表示数字、数量等等的名词。我们这边也补充一下 up to 的其他用法。首先，以事物当主词的话，Something be up to somebody 可以表达什么什么是某人的责任，由某人来决定。像当我们说 It's up to you 就可以表达由你决定，你决定就好。第二个，以人当主词的话 Somebody be up to 加上名词或动名词会有两种意思，一个是表达某人有能力做某事，有能力去处理或执行某事。举例来说 Do you think they are up to the challenge?你认为他们有办法应付那个挑战吗？而另外一个意思则是表达某人在计划某事，偷偷做某事，这尤其是不好的事。像有一个用语 up to no good 就可以用来表达图谋不轨的语义哦。好，第三个，我们可以用 up to 来表达跟 until 差不多的语义，像 up to yesterday 直到昨天， up to this point 到此刻为止，到目前为止。课文接着提到说，这使得长途传讯比以往任何时候都更快更可靠。文中是用 made long distance messaging faster and more reliable 来表达使得长途传讯更快更可靠。那么在课文第三部分有一个句子提到made sending letters widely affordable。 好，那我们这边就是要介绍 make加受词加受词补语的句型，它可以表达使某人或某事物成为怎么样，变得怎么样。那动词 make 在这边是表达使变得，使成为。受词之后接的受词补语，你可以用名词或形容词，像是 The comment made her angry， 那则评论让她很生气，或者是 The actor's charm made the movie a joy to watch， 演员的魅力使这部电影赏心悦目。好，那特别注意，如果受词是不定词 to v， 这时候就不能写作make to v 加受词补语，而是要改用虚受词 it 来代替这个受词的位置，然后把真正的受词 to v 移到句尾，所以句型会变成 make it 加受词补语再加 to v。 举例来说 The heavy rain made it impossible to continue the game， 大雨使得比赛无法继续。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Postal codes are used to help sort and deliver mail faster. Adapt. Because his family moved often during his childhood, Cliff can easily adapt to new environments. Governor. The governor signed several bills into law over the past few weeks. Communication. Without effective communication, teams are more likely to fail to achieve their goals. Eventually. After a long discussion, Chris and Rob eventually managed to agree on a possible solution. Affordable. This hotel offers affordable rooms and is located relatively close to the city center. Innovation. Dr. Yu was able to introduce several smart innovations to the engine's design.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.